So before we send this to our Pyro solver, we're going to have to do a little bit of prep work. So first, I've found that the scale that we're working at now is really good for everything else that we've been doing, but we want to up the scale for the sparse Pyro. It just works a lot better at the scale that I'm going to put it at, which is just 10 times higher. So we're going to do a transform. Make this uniform scale 10. We'll go back up here. We can see that this is now much larger. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a mesh. These points are a bit too far away from each other, so when we turn this into our fuel source, it might look a little spotted, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure that we create a nice solid mesh from this, and then put particles inside of that. So we're going to do VDB from particles. I'm going to do convert VDB. I'm going to change this to polygons. And so this one, it always starts off way too high. I don't know where they landed on 1.5 as the minimum radius, but I've never in my life been able to have this actually work unless I reduce this significantly. So now this gives us some stuff. I'm going to create an SDF reshape. And so I'm going to do a close. And so what this is doing is just sort of congealing things, making it look a bit more fluid. So I can just kind of scrub through here. We can see what this is doing. Looks pretty cool. I'm not sure if it's too large of a P scale for this, so I'm gonna try for point radius scale. I'm gonna make it 0.1, so that's not enough. 0.5. We just don't want this to dilate too much. Yeah, it's not really gonna change a whole lot, so I think something like 0.7 should work. I'll just go back here. So now what we can do is we can fill any of these shapes that might have been too sparse before with a bunch of points. So now we're going to build our own sparse Pyro setup. It is good to know how to do it, and I think a lot of the presets that they have do a lot of things that you don't entirely want. So we'll just go over a quick way on how to build stuff. So first we need a Pyro source. You can see it doesn't know what we want from it, so it doesn't give us any attributes here. But one thing that we do want is we want volume scatter. And I want to change this volume scatter to 0.025. So now when we view this, it'll create points within our volume, and 0.025 gives us enough points so that we don't have any stranded points out off in the distance anywhere. So if I scrub through this, this is building points that will be turned into our fuel. But we need two things. First, in our attributes, we need burn, and we're going to make this a scale of 5. And then we're going to want temperature. Actually, I could just go here and say make temperature. And so then we also want this to be 5. Then we're going to want some noise. So there's attrib noise. And so defaults to a lot of stuff that we don't want. First, we don't want it to be additive, we want it to be multiplicative. And then we want this to be 1D. And then also we are going to want, for attributes, we're going to do burn and temperature here. Let's see, we're going to remap the noise, because right now we don't want it to be from -1 to 1, we want it to be 0 to 1. And everything else should probably be fine. And then we're going to do our volume rasterize attributes. And here again we need to say that we need burn and temperature. And then our voxel size we're going to put at 0.01. So that's much sharper. And then I think everything else there should be fine. And then all we really need to do is create our pyro solver. And it defaults to starting at frame 1001, so we need to kill it. Go up here, start frame. I saw that our particles don't actually exist until frame 1136, so that's the frame we're going to go with. And then we're going to need to change a few things in here. First, in the setup voxel size, we're going to make 0.075. Solving, our time scale. Flames, I always feel like are a little bit too slow in default, so we're going to do 1.1 or 1.25. Our buoyancy scale, we don't want it to shoot up too fast, so we're going to put 0.2. Flames, our flame lifespan is going to be 0.125. Shape dissipation at 0.5 is fine. Disturbance 0.5. We're going to create some disturbance. And then advanced, I always make a min substeps and max substeps too. Look is always pretty good. So sourcing, we're going to change a few things. Actually, I think this should be fine. So yeah, we're just going to roll with this, see what happens. See if there's anything else we need to do. Export's fine. So okay, let's go to frame 1136. I'm gonna go into auto update. I'm gonna scroll back a bit, and I'm gonna kick off a flipbook. So check back in a second. Our flipbook has finished. So let's give this a look. I think that's looking good. Looks like flames. Moving around, got some good shape. I think it's good speed. So we're gonna stick with this. So I like it. We're gonna cache it out, but before we cache it out, we are going to transform it back down. Whoop. Because if you recall, we transformed it up by 10. Now we're going to bring it back to 0.1. And then another thing that we're going to want to do, actually, you know what? I'll cache this out and then we'll do these. So go back up to our file cache, copy it. Put that there. This is going to be flame cache. There we go. We want this to be from 1136 to, we'll just do 1200. We might cut sooner, but we want to have at least that much. So I'm going to write this out. And that was actually in real time because it had already cached in RAM, so works for me. Now we'll translate this down, and then we're going to do a pyro post process, because things, now that it's a different scale, it's a little bit less easy to see. So we need to change a few things. Intensity scale is going to be 5. Burn is going to be 1. Temperature in Kelvin we're going to bring down to 1825. I think everything else should be good. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. So we've got our flame. Not too hard. The sparse pyro is one of the greatest things. It's super quick, looks great. What more can you ask for? So here we're going to do out fire, and we will be calling on this later. So if I do this, yep, that looks good. Awesome. So now that we have this all set up, next we're going to move on to creating the dirt that forms out of this flame. So one thing that I realized after I'd simmed everything out is that we do want this flame to die out. And so I just went back in, and up here in the pyro source, I just put a key so that at frame 10 or 1188, it's at 5, and then it turns to 0, both temperature and burn, at 1189. So then I recached it, and so now if we watch this and go back into auto, we can see that this on that frame goes whoop and burns out.